Hi, this is Brian David Marshall coming to you from the Tournament Center at balmy Pro Tour-San Juan in Puerto Rico. It's right in the middle of day one, and we've got some results from last night's LCQ. There were over 132 players fighting for 4 precious invitations to today's Pro Tour. The format was standard, the same format we saw last weekend in Grand Prix-Washington D.C. And let's see what happened after a few rounds and who ended up with the spots. We had 4 different decks that qualified. We had Darren Menard playing Mythic Conscription. That's the sort of Bant deck with Eldrazi Conscription. Jorg Unfried was playing, Jund. Jund is a deck that has taken advantage of consuming vapors to stay relevant in the new Rise of Eldrazi fueled metagame. Corey Byington is playing a Naya deck. He had Vengevine, but it looked like an old school Naya deck. He had like Woolly Thocters in the deck. Really kind of straightforward 4x4 Naya deck. And then finally, we had a 4th deck. We had Next Level Bant, the deck we saw last week at Grand Prix-Washington D.C. Tom Martell played the deck there. He played the deck again last night. About 4 a.m. this morning, he qualified for the Pro Tour. And we're going to talk to him a little bit about the deck and some of the changes he's made. Tom, why don't you come on? Congratulations.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Great to be here.
You get some sleep?
I know, 3.5 hours.
All right.
All you really need.
That's all you usually get.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. Busy New York life.
So tell me a little bit about Next Level Bant. Tell me about the deck last week.
Sure.
And then what changes maybe you made to
the deck was designed by Pat Chapin and Matt Sperling last week for DC. I think it took a really good advantage of the metagame. It's sort of attacks a lot of different angles. You have sort of the blue-white angle of like the Planeswalkers with a lot of protection for those. Then you also have a very aggressive angle you can play with Vengevines and recurring those. So it actually reminds me in some ways of like a very old school blue control deck with like Morphlings, where Vengevine kind of plays the role of Morphling, who's the unkillable finisher,
right,
who's going to get there eventually, and the rest of the cards kind of peripheral, which give you a lot of play to stall the other team and really get your guys in there.
So one of the cute things from the deck last week that I remember in the coverage, they talked about having like a 5th Wall of Omens, so to speak, in Core Skyfisher.
Sure. I mean, so Core Skyfisher was a card, we started with 2, we cut 1, we're down to 1, and we kind of sat there and we decided it's cute when it works, and when it doesn't work, it does nothing.
Right.
And so a lot of times you'll sit there within your hand, and what you need to be doing is you need to be protecting your Planeswalkers, setting up your late game, or then just killing them with Vengevine. And it only comes into play in that 3rd scenario when you have multiple Vengevine in the graveyard and you can bounce it twice. Right. It never really bounces walls. In practice, those things just never came up. So it was the first card we decided we definitely wanted to cut from the deck.
Okay, and then what did you put back in its place?
So in its place, in DC I started 11-2. My next 3 rounds I lost to various aggro decks because I just didn't have anything to do early enough. And again, Skyfisher, not a good early play. You don't want to play it on turn 2 and bounce a land in this deck. You don't want to bounce your mana guy. So we cut the Skyfisher for a 4th Seagate Oracle, which both comes in early, lets you chump or you can like block. And it also, here we go, Seagate Oracle for the Skyfisher. And it also lets you smooth out your draw. So a lot of times you'll have some awkward draws that come to play tap lands, and you need to hit your 4-drop on turn 4. So you need to dig for that untapped land. And he helps a lot with that on turn 3.
Okay, so walk us through what the plan is with a Bant deck in the current standard format.
Sure. So I mean, well, the LCQ was interesting. It was dominated by blue-white. And I actually, of my 9 rounds, played blue-white 7 times.
Wow.
Once at the Planeswalker version, 6 times with just straight blue-white. I didn't play it a single time at DC. So I actually had no idea how good the matchup was. I thought it was probably like favorable. It is an incredible matchup for you. Your lands are pretty standard, and blue-white can't punish you for your coming to play tap lands. So a lot of times you can just lead, for instance, on turn with the Seagate Citadel, and then on turn 2 untap it and play your Mana Elf. You don't need to play them on turn 1 here. And one awkward thing is you do only have 9 green sources on turn 1, so it can be tough to get your turn 1 Mana Elf against some of the more aggressive decks. Blue-white doesn't hurt you for that at all. The typical plans against blue-white, one is going to be the Vengevine recursion plan. I mean, Vengevine against them is great. You'll usually have out at least 1 Hierarch, so it's hitting for 5.
Right.
Once they die, so they can path them. That's unfortunate. You don't want to get pathed, ideally. But it will happen on some number. You have more to draw, though, and you have a lot of card drawing to dig to more Vengevines. Once one sticks and starts hitting them, they'll have to wrath it away. Once they do, you have some great plans to bring it back. You have Ranger of Eos, who's great because he gets a second body to bring back the Vengevine. Also, though, he gets Scute Mob, which against the slower decks that don't have removal, mainly Mythic and blue-white, the guy's going to get huge.
He basically overloads their paths.
Exactly. They'll have 6 guys they must path. You have the creatures. You also have the Bant Charms to protect them. So you have a lot of ways that will kind of overload their removal there. And the key thing with Scute Mob, I mean, they get huge in those matchups. I had one hit, I think, the biggest I got was, I think, 37 against the Mythic deck. Like, they just get really, really big. You also have your typical kind of mana accelerations. You can go turn 1 Mana Accelerant into turn 2 Oracle or turn 3 Vengevine. You can also then set up your
Jace the Mind Sculptor?
Planeswalker plan. Thank you. So, what are these things called? The Planeswalker plan. They're in Chinese. I can't read the word. And so with those, it's you have your Jaces and your Elspeths. The other cut from DC was -1 Jace, +1 Elspeth. Again, to give you more game, let your Scute Mobs go over the top of Trump blockers and really finish the game.
Right.
And make Trump blockers again to set up your other Planeswalkers. The Planeswalkers all work very well together, just like in blue-white. You can get multiple out, and they'll protect each other. They're very, very powerful in multiples. And then finally, you just have your kind of typical removal, 2, 2, and 2. There's a good split. Take out Planeswalkers or blockers, counter Path to Exiles or take out blockers, and then your kind of ubiquitous removal spell there.
Right. Tell me a little bit about the
The
sideboard.
big changes here we made were in the sideboard. So in DC, we had mind controls, we had core firewalkers, we had cards that really didn't do enough and were very narrow. So the changes here we made were we cut, or I cut 3 the firewalkers, replaced those with 2 Celestial Purges and 2 Wall Denials, so that your red matchup still remains strong, but you have play against other decks. For instance, against Jund, now that they're going on Siege Gangs and Sarkhan the Mads, you really want the Celestial Purges to be able to get rid of those really troublesome 5-drops. The other addition here was the Ousts. Again, your problem is early plays against these decks. They go turn 2 Putrid Leech, and they start attacking you with their Putrid Leech. You just oust it, buy yourself a lot of time. Against the Mythic decks, you don't want to path their Lotus Cobra because you don't want to give them the extra mana.
Right.
Oust is the perfect solution. Turn 1 mana accelerant, oust it. You get so much more time that way. The things that remain the same were the Deprives and the Negates. Again, great against blue-white. In DC, we're bringing in Deprive against Jund. We no longer need to now that we have these other great options. Linvala was excellent in DC. Turns off all the mana creatures.
It was really the breakout card from Grand
I think
Prix-DC.
so, yeah. I mean, against Nye, it's great. Turns off their Cunning Spark Mages. Against the green decks, it turns off their Hierarchs and their Birds. Just does a lot. So we added a second one of those. And against Jund, it also turns off their Siege Gang Commanders, which is huge, because it's one of the cards that you really have a problem dealing with.
Right.
And then just 3 kind of catch-alls. The 4th Jace against control decks. Pridemage against control decks to take out their O-Rings or take out their Chalices. And then an O-Ring just to give you another all-purpose removal spell.
All right, great. Well, sounds like your round's getting started. So
We're back to Pro Tour.
You got a Pro Tour to play in.
I do.
Just before we go, let me ask you one question.
Of course.
All the players on the Pro Tour, who's your arch enemy?
I mean, I don't have one anymore. I've been playing the Pro Tour since 2002. All my arch enemies have retired or died, so hopefully I can start a new one soon.
So you've survived them all?
I have outlasted them all by my inactivity.
Excellent.
But hopefully
excellent.
we're back and I can develop one soon.
Okay, well, for Tom Martell, this is Brian David Marshall signing off from the Tournament Center.
Thank you.